Welcome back. This is the third and the final part of the lesson on generics. In the previous two parts, we saw how to make basic use of generics, what are generic classes and what are generic interfaces, as well as how to use wildcards with generics. In this part, we're going to see what we mean by generic methods and how to make use of them. Now, let's say I have a method like this. I have a method called add, which takes two integers as argument, does something to both of them, probably as the name suggests, add them up and return that integer. Now, when I invoke this method, I can invoke this method as maybe integer result equals add with 10, 20. So this is perfectly fine. Now let's say what I wanted to do is I wanted to make this add method much more general. That is, I don't want to limit the type of arguments to integer and therefore not limit the return type to integer. I want add method to be able to take maybe two strings as argument, somehow add them up, maybe concatenate them and return a string, or take two doubles and return a double, and so on. So I want this add method to be much more general than what it is currently, or I want this to be much more generic than what it is currently. So what do I do about the signature of this add method? What do I make as the argument types? Keep in mind, what I want to avoid or what I want to prevent is it should not so happen that add method gets called with first argument as string and second argument as integer, or vice versa. So whatever is the type of the first argument, that should be the type of the second argument, and that type should be the return type as well. So this is what I want to achieve. If I were to change the argument type to object and the return type to object, then that kind of mixed parameters become possible. That is, the first argument could be a string, the second argument could be an integer, and so on. So this is where I make use of generic methods. So generic methods are methods where at the method level, we specify a type parameter. A type parameter is specified within angular brackets before the return type. We could use any identifier for this type parameter. So I'm using t, and what I want to say is this method add takes an argument of type subtype t as the two arguments, and its return type is also argument. Its return type is also dependent on the argument type. So I will change the return type to t as well. So you can see now we're able to invoke this very same method with two integers as argument. But when I try to do something like this, let's say string s equal to add of, let's say, let me pass two strings abc, comma, xyz. So we see that we are able to invoke it with both strings and integers or potentially any other types. But if I were to do string x equals add, it takes a string and an integer as argument, this call would not compile because we have made the signature in such a way that whatever is the type of the first argument, the second argument should be of the same type and the return type would be the same type. So this is what we mean by generic methods.